He shared the screen with Hollywood's biggest names and their beds behind closed doors. Montgomery Clift was more than a matinee idol. He was the keeper of forbidden romances that the studios fought to bury. For decades, his truth was silenced by fear, power, and image control. But not anymore. In this video, we unveil the secret lovers, the double lives, and the queer history Hollywood never wanted you to hear. Montgomery Clift was born Edward Montgomery Clift on October 17, 1920, in Omaha, Nebraska. Clift grew up in a privileged but turbulent household. His mother, Ethel Clift, was a strong-willed woman with aristocratic ambitions, and she groomed her children to be cultured and well-traveled, exposing young Monty to music, languages, and the arts from an early age. His upbringing, though marked by intellectual enrichment, was also shadowed by instability and emotional distance, elements that would later echo in the roles he portrayed. Clift began his acting career on the Broadway stage as a teenager, quickly earning critical acclaim for his precocious talent and emotional intensity. He made his Broadway debut at the age of 15, and by his early 20s, was starring alongside established actors such as Tallulah Bankhead and the duo Lunt and Fontanne. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Clift honed his craft on the stage for nearly a decade before making the leap to film, which lent a theatrical depth and subtlety to his screen presence that set him apart from the traditional Hollywood leading men of the time. He turned down long-term studio contracts to maintain his artistic independence, a decision almost unheard of in the 1940s, and was one of the first actors to bring a method acting sensibility to mainstream American cinema. Clift's film debut came in 1948 with the western Red River, opposite John Wayne, in which his sensitive portrayal of the adopted son of a domineering cattleman offered a striking contrast to the stoic, hyper-masculine archetypes that had previously dominated the genre. That same year, he starred in The Search, earning his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. The film told the story of a soldier who helps a young boy search for his mother after World War II, and Clift's empathetic performance resonated deeply with post-war audiences. Over the next decade, Clift would deliver a series of unforgettable performances in critically acclaimed films, including A Place in the Sun, 1951, From Here to Eternity, 1953, Raintree County, 1957, Suddenly, Last Summer, 1959, and Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961. His work with directors like George Stevens, Fred Zinnemann, and Edward Dmytryk displayed his versatility and rare emotional transparency, qualities that profoundly influenced future generations of actors, including Marlon Brando, James Dean, and Al Pacino. Despite his professional success, Clift's life was marked by profound personal struggles. He was a closeted gay man at a time when homosexuality was not only stigmatized, but also career-ending in Hollywood. The emotional toll of hiding his true self, combined with the pressure to maintain a carefully managed public image, led to lifelong battles with anxiety, depression, and substance abuse. In 1956, Clift was involved in a near-fatal car accident after leaving a dinner party hosted by Elizabeth Taylor, with whom he shared a deep, lifelong friendship. The crash left his face partially disfigured and required extensive plastic surgery, permanently altering his appearance and deepening his inner turmoil. After the accident, his acting took on an even more raw, haunting quality, leading film historian Patricia Bosworth to refer to his later career as the longest suicide in Hollywood history, a painful but poignant reference to the emotional depth he continued to bring to the screen, even as he suffered privately. Clift's later years were plagued by declining health and erratic behavior, but he remained committed to his craft. He gave one of his most powerful and understated performances in The Misfits, 1961, directed by John Huston and written by Arthur Miller, in which he starred alongside Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable. two fellow icons who also struggled with their own inner demons. Clift's portrayal of a broken cowboy searching for meaning mirrored his own inner conflict, and the role is often cited as one of his finest. His final film, The Defector, 1966, was completed shortly before his death and, although less celebrated, demonstrated his enduring commitment to acting. On July 22, 1966, Montgomery Clift spent the majority of the day secluded in his New York City townhouse, a red brick residence located at 217 East 61st Street, nestled in Manhattan's affluent Upper East Side. The house, which had become a kind of private sanctuary for the reclusive actor in his later years, was modest by Hollywood standards, but steeped in personal history, and filled with books, letters, and memorabilia from his long and tumultuous career. Clift's life at this point had become one marked by solitude, and although he was not entirely alone that day, his behavior suggested a deepening detachment from those around him. His longtime companion and private nurse, Lorenzo James, who had assumed near constant care for Clift in his final years, was in the house with him, but the two men barely exchanged words. Their silence was not unusual. In fact, it reflected a growing emotional and physical withdrawal that Clift had exhibited for some time. Clift, once a vibrant star known for his charm and intensity, had become increasingly insular, perhaps weighed down by declining health, the emotional scars of a traumatic car crash a decade earlier, and a complex struggle with addiction and inner turmoil. As the clock moved past midnight into the early hours of July 23rd, James, sensing the late hour and perhaps searching for a way to reconnect, suggested that Clift might want to watch a rebroadcast of The Misfits, the 1961 film in which he had co-starred with Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable. The movie, which was scheduled to air as a late-night feature, held bittersweet associations. It was not only one of Clift's more acclaimed later performances, but also the last completed film for both Monroe and Gable before their deaths. Yet Clift's response to the suggestion was abrupt and emphatic. "Absolutely not," he snapped, clearly uninterested or perhaps unwilling to relive memories associated with the film, which was created during a time of personal and professional strain. The outburst marked the last known words Clift ever spoke. After hearing the sharp rebuff, James quietly withdrew to his own bedroom, without pressing the matter further, choosing not to speak again to Clift. At approximately 6:30 a.m., as sunlight filtered into the quiet townhouse, James awoke and, following his routine, went to check on Clift. When he found the actor's bedroom door locked from the inside, alarm bells rang. Clift rarely locked his door, and the silence behind it was unsettling. James tried in vain to force the door open, but when his efforts failed, he hurried to the garden at the rear of the townhouse. There, in a desperate bid to reach Clift, he climbed a ladder and entered the second-floor bedroom through a window. What he discovered was chilling. Clift was lying motionless in bed, undressed, his eyeglasses still perched on his face and both fists tightly clenched by his sides. The image was striking, peaceful yet tense, as though even in death, Clift's body retained the physical memory of his lifelong struggles. James, likely stunned and panicked, immediately used the bedroom telephone to contact Clift's personal physicians and the New York City Medical Examiner's office. Despite the swift arrival of an ambulance, it was clear there was nothing to be done. Clift's body was soon transferred to the city morgue, where an autopsy was performed. The examination revealed that the cause of death was a massive heart attack, brought on by occlusive coronary artery disease, a condition in which the arteries become so blocked that the heart can no longer function properly. While the findings confirmed that Clift had died of natural causes, they also stirred public speculation. No trace of foul play or suicide was uncovered during the post-mortem. But rumors persisted, as they often do with tragic Hollywood figures, especially those with reputations marred by mystery and melancholy. In the days that followed, discussions about Clift's deteriorating health and personal demons reignited. Many believed that his death had been hastened by years of substance abuse, which had compounded the physical trauma he endured after his near-fatal car accident in 1956. That accident had shattered his face and left him reliant on painkillers, sedatives, and alcohol to cope with the resulting pain and disfigurement. Additionally, Clift had long battled dysentery and chronic colitis, conditions that left him in frequent discomfort and further complicated his health. The autopsy also uncovered a previously undiagnosed underactive thyroid, or hypothyroidism, which can produce symptoms such as fatigue, depression, low blood pressure, and slurred speech. This condition may have caused Clift to appear intoxicated even when sober, contributing to the mistaken public impression that he was constantly drunk or drugged. This revelation added a tragic layer to Clift's story, suggesting that some of the damage to his reputation may have stemmed from medical issues beyond his control. Clift's funeral was a brief but solemn affair, held at St. James's Church on Madison Avenue in Manhattan. The service lasted only 15 minutes, but was attended by approximately 150 mourners, including some of the most notable figures in entertainment and Hollywood royalty. Among them were Lauren Bacall, Frank Sinatra, and Nancy Walker, each of whom had either worked with Clift or counted themselves among his personal friends. The simplicity of the service reflected Clift's own complex and often minimalist personality. After the ceremony, his body was laid to rest at the Friends Quaker Cemetery, located in the heart of Brooklyn's Prospect Park. A quiet, tree-shaded burial ground that offered a stark contrast to the chaos and publicity of his film career. Although she was in Rome at the time and unable to attend in person, Elizabeth Taylor, one of Clift's closest confidants and lifelong supporters, sent flowers in tribute. Others who sent floral arrangements included Roddy McDowell, Judy Garland, Maureen O'Hara, and Lew Wasserman, each acknowledging Clift's profound impact on the world of cinema and on their lives personally. Their gestures spoke volumes about the esteem in which Clift was held, despite, or perhaps because of, the fragility and pain that had defined so much of his existence. His death marked the end of a brilliant, tormented life, one that continues to fascinate and move admirers decades later. Montgomery Clift, one of the most enigmatic and talented actors of Hollywood's golden age, lived a life marked by both extraordinary artistic achievement and profound personal struggle. Beneath the brooding charm and vulnerable masculinity that made him a screen icon lay a private life that he guarded fiercely. Montgomery Clift, one of the most enigmatic and talented actors of Hollywood's golden age, lived a life marked by both extraordinary artistic achievement and profound personal struggle. Beneath the brooding charm and vulnerable masculinity that made him a screen icon lay a private life that he guarded fiercely, particularly when it came to his sexuality. In an era when being openly gay could destroy an actor's career, Clift was part of a hidden network of closeted gay and bisexual men in Hollywood. While he never publicly came out during his lifetime, several close friends and biographers have recounted that Clift confided in them about his relationships with other men in the film industry, including a few well-known names who themselves were forced to live double lives. According to several posthumous accounts, including those from friends like Elizabeth Taylor and various Hollywood insiders, Clift had discreet romantic entanglements with a number of his contemporaries. One of the most frequently mentioned figures is fellow actor and heartthrob Farley Granger, who later publicly acknowledged his bisexuality. Granger and Clift reportedly shared a brief, intense connection in the late 1940s, a time when both were being groomed by the studio system as leading men. Their relationship, while never officially confirmed by either party during their lifetimes, has been described by sources as passionate, yet shadowed by the necessity of secrecy. Among those allegedly named was Rock Hudson, another screen heartthrob who spent his entire life deflecting questions about his sexuality. Although both men worked within the same Hollywood circles, they rarely appeared together in public, perhaps to avoid suspicion. But according to accounts from those who knew them intimately, the two shared a passionate but fleeting affair in the early 1950s, when both were still rising stars. Their relationship, one source claims, was marked by deep affection, but strained by Hudson's increasing dependence on studio manipulation and public image management. Another name that surfaces in whispered circles of old Hollywood lore is Marlon Brando. The two actors shared a deep mutual admiration and a similar acting philosophy, rooted in method acting, which revolutionized the craft in mid-20th century cinema. Though Brando was famously elusive about his own sexuality, making ambiguous comments in interviews and acknowledging that he had had homosexual experiences, it has long been rumored that he and Clift had at least one romantic encounter. Their connection, though possibly fleeting and unspoken in public, represented the complex web of attraction, rivalry, and shared struggle that characterized relationships among gay and bisexual men in a homophobic industry. John Ireland, another actor known for his rugged screen presence, is also said to have been romantically linked to Clift. Ireland's career trajectory and reputation for intensity made him an intriguing counterpart to Clift's more introspective persona. Though little documentation exists, Clift allegedly described their bond as emotionally charged and fraught with the fear of discovery, especially given Ireland's carefully curated public image. Clift was also rumored to have shared a deep, possibly romantic companionship with singer and actor Paul Robeson. Though this association is far more speculative and less documented than others, it speaks to Clift's broader circle of influence and the diversity of individuals who may have shaped his emotional and romantic life. Robeson, a politically outspoken figure and one of the most prominent black entertainers of his time, was under immense scrutiny from both government and media, making any such relationship, real or imagined, a dangerous proposition. Clift's romantic life was conducted under the radar, with most of his relationships taking place in private homes, secluded parties, or behind the protective curtain of Hollywood's studio system, which frequently employed fixers and gossip columnists to keep damaging stories from the press. He often dated men who, like him, feared exposure, leading to a string of relationships defined more by emotional depth and secrecy than by public visibility. Those who knew him well, including close confidants like Elizabeth Taylor, described his relationships as profoundly meaningful, yet always tinged with sadness due to the ever-present need for discretion. In a time when being labeled as homosexual could mean the end of a career, Montgomery Clift's bravery lay not in open declarations, but in his refusal to conform entirely to the studio system's expectations. He rejected studio-mandated marriages of convenience and instead chose to live as authentically as he could within the confines of a deeply repressive era. He rejected studio-mandated marriages of convenience and instead chose to live as authentically as he could within the confines of a deeply repressive era. His story is one of quiet resistance and emotional truth, a testament to the hidden lives of many men like him, who helped shape Hollywood history from the shadows. They called him a Hollywood tragedy, but the real tragedy was how hard he had to hide. Montgomery Clift didn't just play tortured men, he was one. Behind every role was a buried truth, a stolen moment, a name never spoken aloud. If this story moved you, don't let it vanish like so many others. Like, comment, and subscribe to LGBTQ+ Vibes, where we uncover lives Hollywood tried to erase. Because some legends weren't built, they were buried. And if this story touched you the way it touched us, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that share button, let someone else feel seen, heard, or maybe even healed. Drop a comment below and tell us, which LGBTQ+ icon should we explore next? Your voice truly shapes this channel. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, feeling, and growing with us. We're not just telling stories, we're building a community, one truth at a time. See you in the next chapter.